you have a company, Google, right? Obviously, a very important, structurally important internet company. They have had one successful internal product to speak of and it was a product from the previous millennium. It was a search engine. It was really good when they launched it 27 years ago. Virtually everything they've made in-house since has been a flop, and almost all their successes,
Damn. Yeah, shots
mobile
fired.
video. Well,
Yeah.
it's just empirically true. Mobile video, ad tech, server management, docs, collaboration. Those are all other people's companies they bought and operationalized. They are ops people, not innovators. And look, I'm an ex-ops guy. That's fine. But their story is we are innovators. And the thing is that under the letter of antitrust law, of competition law, that kind of acquisition is unlawful, right? When you're acquiring a competitor to reduce competition, that is an unlawful acquisition. And yet the DOJ, the FTC, under multiple presidents, Democrat and Republican, just waved through all those mergers. And so Google was able to build up quite a giant war chest. And they started to buy all the shelf space. So they bribed Apple more than $20 billion a year not to make a competing search engine. They bought every operating system, every browser, every carrier, every platform, so that if there was ever a search box in front of you, it was wired into Google's server, which meant that nobody really invested in a rival search engine except for Microsoft, which just rolled it out with its OS. And as a result, they became not just too big to fail and too big to jail, they became too big to care. So in 2019, when the DOJ sued Google for antitrust violations, they published a lot of memos from Google that they'd received through discovery. And one set of those memos that Ed Zitron from the Where's Your Red At newsletter analyzed in depth talks about how Google deliberately decided to enshitify its service. So in 2019, Google had hit a wall on search growth because they had 90% market share. So people with 90% market share don't grow, right? You could raise 1 billion humans to maturity and make them Google customers, which is what Google Classroom is, but it takes like 18 years, right? And so they needed some other way to goose revenue. And you have this epic battle between two Google executives, and you can see it play out in the emails and the memos. You have one guy called Prabhakar Raghavan, who's the revenue guy for Google Search. He's an ex-McKinsey guy, came from Yahoo. And you have another guy called Ben Gomes, who's the tech guy for Google Search. And he has been with Google since the earliest days. He was their data center guy. He started with one server under a desk and built out the global network of data centers and eventually became their search tech guy. And so Prabhakar Raghavan's got this great idea. He says, what if we made search worse? Right? If we turn off the things that let you one-shot a search, right? Like spell checking and this thing called query stemming, where like if you search for pants, they do another search for trousers in the background. Context clues, like if there's a monkey that got loose on a highway and you search for a monkey, it like elevates those queries more highly because everyone's searching for that. And that's the thing they're looking for. All the stuff that kind of made Google magic and let them one-shot those queries. We just turn all that off. Now you got to search 2-3 times before you find the thing you're looking at. Well, each time you search, that's another chance to show you an ad. And so here you've got, these two ideas. And if Google were in a competitive environment, if Google was worried about regulators, if Google was worried about their employees, because remember, Google hired these brilliant technologists, a significant plurality of all the top PhDs from every major university in the world, they would be in a position where this would be unthinkable. But by the time 2019 rolls around, they're already getting to the point where they're thinking they've got enough workers. They don't have to be quite so deferential to them. Sure, they'll keep the free kombucha and the massages and the ball pit and stuff, but let them get angry about this stuff. They're not worried about competitors, obviously. They're not worried about regulators for good reason. I mean, for one thing, Google's been invading our privacy since, the early 2000s with impunity, because the last time America got a new consumer privacy law was in 1988 when Ronald Reagan signed a law that bans video store clerks from revealing your video rental history. That's the last technological privacy threat that Congress has defended us against as consumers. And so they're not worried about regulators either. So they're sitting there completely unrestrained. You have these two factions, and you can imagine those factions have been at Google since the early years. I mean, I know people who went to Google who were just scumbags and who were just greedy assholes, but they lost their arguments for the most part for a couple of decades. And now they start winning the arguments, right? The discipline, the fear of competitors, of workers, of interoperable technology, of regulators, that's gone away. And so when the clash occurs, it cashes out in favor of a shittier service. And that's enshittification. And it's not caused by greed, because we didn't invent greed in the late 2010s. And it's not caused by VC, because VC companies backed Google when it was good. And it's not caused by laziness. It's not because you weren't paying for the product, so you were the product. I mean, Apple, when they turned off spying for Facebook, they turned on spying for Apple to run their own ad network with no opt-out. You can pay for the product, you cannot pay for the product. If the company can make you the product, you're going to be the product, right? So it's not about a customer reward perk. It's about discipline. It's about fear. And so you take away all the fear, take away all the discipline, enshittification follows like night follows day.
Thank you very much for listening. Please subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, follow and rate on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. You can also hype videos on YouTube now. Marketing tutorials insist. It's really important that I keep harping on and hassle you about that, so I'm doing it. Also, if you'd like to, please support me on Patreon. Again, this is a one-person podcast. I do everything by my little old self. There's no team behind me, but you can help by hopping on Patreon and finding the Smart Cookies podcast on there. And then last but certainly not least, I have to thank my existing patrons. Tovarishin and Tovarishice, without you there would be no Smart Cookies, which makes you actual producers of this show. So eternal thanks goes to Delen Mia, Chert Gosar, Sasha Sodia, Richard, Amy Ons, Matija Renčel, Florian Hawa, Peter Karba, Matija Zupancic, Dejan Žolnir, Darej, Rok Tržan, Sasha Vipotnik, Neven Cvijanović, Juš Premrov, Sirkezi, Goran Ivašić, Anže Sever, Ole, Marin Ferrara, Aljaš Mahar, Štrole, Ajda Macjan, Miha Medved, Medinho, Goran, Gordan, Lorenzo, Jurečuk, Mila, Carmen, Veronica, and Taichi. That's a long list, and I'm super, super grateful that it's getting longer. I'm deeply touched. Thanks again for all your support. Bye-bye.